morning. It's Monday morning and it is a lovely day. It's actually, I was just telling Andrea before we started the show, it's going to be storming here all day. But for somebody who grew up in the South and loves storms, this is a good day for me because I'm going to get to watch storms from this lovely sunroom where I am sitting. We're down in South Carolina at Kiowa Island, which I'd never been to. And it's lovely and quiet. Great time of year to be here. But I'm glad to have you guys here. We are ASMM Digital's Small Business Connections. We are the podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. Our goal is for you to walk away from this episode, from every episode, with something you can put to work in your business. At the very least, something that leaves you thinking about, hey, what am I doing in my business and how can I make it better in that way? I want to remind you that you can subscribe anywhere you're listening to the podcast. But if you're watching it right now, you can subscribe on youtube.com/Brennan Annie. My kids will think I'm less nerdy if I hit 1,000. So help me be less of a nerd. That's really, really important to me. We're on episode 78. And we are streaming live. We're streaming live. I tell you this because we have experts on the show. We have people on the show who know a lot and they can help you. And guess what? They're live. So you can ask them questions right now. If you have a question, reach out. Let us know what it is. And Andrea Dunathan is going to answer for us. Before we start with her today, I do want to remind you on a very serious note, it is National Suicide Prevention Month. In the past week alone, I have received 4 phone calls from people close to me who have lost someone to suicide. 4 suicides in the past week. It's too much. And I want to remind you that the way we stop this is to start talking about it. So there's 2 ways you can do that. You can say, I'm struggling and I need help. That's a very hard thing to do. It's a very brave thing to do. Please do it. If you need help, please do it. But I also want to remind you, please check on your strong friends. Your strong friends are the ones who are acting like they're okay right now, and they are really struggling inside. So please check on your strong friends. That is so important. Ask them how they're doing. And if you suspect suicide, it is not going to push them over the edge to say, are you considering suicide right now? Are you that depressed? It's really important to ask that question. It will help a lot because chances are they're waiting for somebody to ask it. So please do ask. Let me introduce you now to Andrea Dunathan. I want to tell you, Andrea is another member of my BNI group. I love my BNI group. I think I got so lucky to be a part of it because it is filled with people who are truly quality business owners. And Andrea is one of those, and she works with business owners. So welcome, Andrea. How are you?
Thanks, Ann. I'm so excited to be here today.
Oh, I'm so glad you're on. And I'm glad, I went on vacation and my calendar said canceled. I had to message you and say, it's really not canceled. Please come in. Please come on.
So I'm so glad you're taking time on your vacation for this. It's great.
Oh, of course. And I got a rainy day, so it's not like I could be at the beach anyway, right? So
that's positive thinking.
Exactly. So Andrea, tell everybody what you do and what brought you to it.
So I'm a business operations consultant. People say, well, what exactly does that mean? So basically, I help people make the most of the resources they have in their business. So you may have experienced a time in your business where you're growing fast and you might have staff helping you and all that. But as you grow quickly, things get a little chaotic. Things start fraying at the edges. It gets a little out of control. You're loving having these new customers, but you're starting to wonder if you can really handle all of them because it's getting so hectic. And that's a great situation for me to come in and look at the way you're doing your work and just make sure that, things are streamlined. Everybody knows exactly what to do when, so they're not constantly bothering the owner saying, what do I do now? What do I do now? What do I do with this situation? We can get your staff trained and set up on some standard processes that really let them go to town on their work and frees up the business owner to really focus on growing the business. And the staff are happier, the owner's happier, and the customers are happier, which is really important.
Oh, absolutely. And it is so important as you build. It was so funny. I got very lucky. My first hire was Anastasia Van Greshapie, and she's been absolutely amazing. But what was really amazing about her is that she grew up in fish and chip shops with her parents. Her parents owned fish and chip shops, and she understood processes. I started this, by the seat of my pants. I just said, I think I'll start a business. And I did. So there was so much I didn't know. And she came in and she said, we need processes. And I said, but there's only 2 of us. And she said, there will be more. And now there are more.
Good
and
for her.
God, Yeah, thank God I had her. And now actually my latest hire just did the same thing. She says, as we grow, I think we should make sure that this particular thing is ready for those next people. So
Mm-hmm.
it's amazing to have people who can help you with that. And I love that you do that. So
That's great.
also I want to mention, and we're not going to talk about this today, but you also help people strategize ways that they can build the business in a way that they can sell it. So
Thank
that's,
you for mentioning that.
yeah,
Yes, that is. So, a lot of businesses grow kind of organically, and the owner is very involved in the business, which is great. But when they go, they start thinking 5 or 10 years out from retirement, and they start thinking about transferring that business to another owner, passing it to the next generation, or selling it on the open market. And all that knowledge is in the business owner's head. It's not written down. The new owner is not going to be able to necessarily just step in and take over because they don't know how it's being run. So that's another case where we can get things operating more turnkey. And
right.
if you put it on the open market, you can actually sell it for more if the operations are more consistent and documented and all the staff is trained, because the new owner can just walk in and take over.
Absolutely. So I love that you do that too. That's great. All right, let's talk about clients and how
Mm-hmm.
I love this. We talked about this before, that it's important to analyze your current clients and your past clients. So what are we looking for in that?
Well, a lot of people kind of take whoever comes as a client. And of course, you should be open to any new client, but there are clients that are going to take up a whole lot of your time and energy and not bring you that much in terms of revenue or good reputation, that type of thing. We all know that. Anybody who's been in business for a while, you've got clients who were frustrating. You felt like you couldn't do your best work for them. It was pulling teeth to get the project done or have the transaction. So when we look at our current and past clients, we're really looking to tell what are the characteristics of the really good clients and what are the characteristics of the clients that turned out not to be such great clients. And you want to aim your marketing at the type of client that's going to be an excellent client for you, and kind of gently persuade the clients that aren't so good for you to maybe look for other resources to address their issues.
Yeah, I think that's so important. One of the things that we know, and it seems counterintuitive, but it's totally true. We prefer clients who are hands-on.
Hmm.
By that, we mean we want a client who calls us and says, hey, I took these beautiful pictures today, right? I
Mm-hmm.
took great pictures in the restaurant, or I took I
Mm-hmm.
had my team take these pictures when they were out fixing this HVAC system. And those
Mm-hmm.
things are important because it's our content. We need that. So
Mm-hmm.
it seems counterintuitive because we have people who we don't talk to for a year, and it makes it easy in some ways because you just put the content out there, but it's not going to be effective content. So
Mm-hmm.
knowing that one particular thing is really important. So when somebody says to me, oh, I'm not going to have time to do that, then we say, this might not be the medium for you then, because if you're not
Mm-hmm.
going to have the time to create some content, easy content,
Mm-hmm.
then it's not going to do as well. We want to make sure we're creating stuff that really does work for you.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
yeah.
a really good point, Anne, because really, I think what a lot of business owners want, you and me included, is we want our customers to be successful. And so helping them realize maybe social media isn't the ideal medium, maybe you can steer them to another way that they could be more effective in their marketing, right? And they
Exactly.
don't end up being your client, but they do well in their business, and you can get satisfaction from that, and you can focus your energy on the good clients.
Well, and they're likely to refer to you. I have a client
Yes.
who I turned away a couple of years ago. I was like, I don't think this is right for you. She has sent me
Mm-hmm.
so many more clients because she's like, Anne will tell you. If
Yep.
it's right for you, she'll tell you. And if it's not, she'll tell you that
Yep.
too. So I
Yep.
think it is really good for you to be able to do that. So tell me,
Mm-hmm.
when you talk about using your sales and marketing process for that purpose, tell me
Mm-hmm.
how that would work, what you're seeing.
So let's use the example you gave, right? You're looking for clients that really want to, really want to share their material with you so that you can really have that authentic social media presence. So in your marketing, trying to look for new clients, make that process clear, right? Be like, our clients provide us their day to day, they're taking pictures in their stores, they're talking about things, they want their staff to be interviewed, whatever it is to create that content for you. And you say that's an integral part of our process. Well, then somebody who comes along and who doesn't really like sharing that stuff is going to read that marketing material from you and say, oh, maybe this isn't the right fit, right? And
Right.
you're not telling them no, but you are telling them, here is what we do. So you're being very clear about your process, and they kind of self-select out. That saves you and them a whole lot of time and trouble in terms of, if it's not the right fit, let them recognize it's not the right fit right up front.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. All right. So let's talk about abundance attitude, and this one's a big one
Mm-hmm.
for us personally, right? In our
Mm-hmm.
it's an important part of why our chapter in particular is so successful, but it is
Mm-hmm.
also important in our business. So talk a little bit about abundance attitude and why you think that's so important to a small business owner.
Well, especially now in the era of COVID, a lot of businesses have struggled to have new clients, right? Because the economy is spotty, to put
Right.
it mildly.
Yeah.
So it's really tempting to take any client that comes along, right? I mean, it is revenue and we need revenue. Trust me, I believe that and I understand that. But the wrong clients can still actually drag you down. They can take time away from your best clients. They can take time away from finding the right clients and finding that really good business. So having that belief that things are going to come, that the work you're doing in terms of marketing and sales is going to pay off, and that you should focus on that ideal target market and not just take anybody who comes, it really will help you if you can stay the course. Again, I want to stress that I understand in the time of COVID, people are, feeling the pinch, and I understand. But just think about the worst clients you've had, and were they worth it? Did they bring more trouble and take more time than the money that they brought in was really worth it? So you got to kind of weigh those factors, and only you know the right answer. But I will say, there are clients I've regretted saying yes to, but the clients I've said no to, I have never regretted saying no to. So you got to think about that, and then make your own judgment call.
You absolutely do. And it happened actually in the very beginning of COVID. I received a phone call from a client I had turned down actually originally. And I will
Mm-hmm.
be very honest and blunt here. I turned him down because he was a jerk. He
Mm-hmm.
was the very first thing he said to me is about how much he hates Greeks. And Anastasia was sitting there with me and she's
As
from
a Greek
Greece.
person,
I was
I'm a
like,
little,
I was really offended. I was like, this is horrible. But he was also
yeah,
he was just not a nice person. And we turned him down. And then he called me and he called me and he called me and he called me at the beginning of COVID. And he says, I will pay you 4 times what
wow.
what. And I was this close. I was this close to taking him. And
Yeah,
then Anastasia and I talked about it and we're like, we just can't. We
yeah.
just it's not worth it because you're right. Every time you get a client who is a problem, it brings everything else down and it puts your business at risk.
Yes, it does. Yeah,
Yeah.
and think about how many discussions you might have had with him, had he become a client, of him wanting to post certain types of things and you saying, you can't do that. That's not appropriate. You shouldn't do that, right? And you would have
Right.
struggled and struggled. So, but it is hard to do. I
Oh,
want to
yeah.
be very clear. I understand it's hard to say no to
Oh, it
4
is.
times the money.
It is. Well, and I want to talk about abundance attitude in a little bit different way as well. And I want to think about when you're talking about, so we'll use social media as an example. People are like,
Sure.
oh, social media is completely, everybody's doing it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's really not true, first of all, but secondly, most people aren't doing it. So if you're on social media, by the way, you're going to have a leg up on your customer, on your competition, because your competition's probably not doing it. And if they are, they're probably not doing
Mm-hmm.
it. So it is out there. But at the same time, I think people are afraid. They're like, I have to keep all of it. Whereas within our BNI in particular,
Mm-hmm.
there are things I can do, but I will give it to somebody else in the group because I know
Mm-hmm.
when he gets a social media client, he's going to send that one to me. And so
Mm-hmm.
when you start working on a bigger basis and you start saying, I'm going to pull in these outside sources and I'm going to create a partnership with a bunch of people so I can
Mm-hmm.
serve my clients better, then you
Mm-hmm.
do end up doing better. That's a whole other area of thinking about your business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that applies in a lot of ways. Like I know a comedy producer who partners with restaurants and they both give discounts, right? So it's like a dinner and comedy package, but more informal because you're not actually eating dinner at the comedy venue pre-COVID. Um,
Right.
right. But by they each give up a little revenue in terms of ticket price or dinner price, but they're both getting a lot more business, right? Because they're partnering together, they're sharing that, and they're jointly marketing, and they just reach people who had never thought of eating at that restaurant or going to that comedy show. It's a win-win for everybody. So I do think if you can think about the bigger picture and think about what audience is your ideal audience and how can you focus on them and focus on the services that you bring most value to them, you're going to grow your business that way.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we've got a comment or a question.
Sure.
Oh, James Bonato said he learned something the hard way. I'm guessing, James, if you want to leave another comment and let us know, I'm guessing you're talking about a client that's difficult and how much that costs your business. So it is absolutely true. It's so much better. One of the reasons we do this show is so that we can learn from other people's lessons, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that somebody said,
Absolutely.
yeah. So if they say, hey, I had this horrible thing happen. I mean, a good example. When I started this business, I was about 8 months in. I was like, oh, I don't think I've ever billed that client. And I
Oops.
ended and so I ended up hiring an
Processes.
accountant. I know, it was like, this is a mistake. I need to really make sure I'm billing people. So, and James said, yes,
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly what he's talking about. But yeah, you have to learn from other people's lessons. And I think it's a great way to go. And I hope that's what people get from this show. All right. So let's talk about, before I say this, most of our clients we love, right?
Yes.
Most
Yeah,
of
that's a
our
good thing to
clients,
say.
because we do love them. I know for me personally, I have clients. I have one who's on vacation right now, and it's so funny that this is how I feel. But I'm so glad he's on vacation because I know he's had a tough time with COVID. And one of the reasons is that he travels a lot overseas. He goes overseas a
Mm-hmm.
lot, and he hasn't been able to do that at all. And right now, he's taken a cross country trip with his wife, and it's lovely. But that's how I love my clients. I love them
Mm-hmm.
personally as well as
Mm-hmm.
professionally. I love that they're my clients and I'm getting a paycheck from them, but I love them
Mm-hmm.
personally.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about these 20% of your clients who are taking up most of your time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, explain why it's important to look at them.
Well, as we said at the beginning, the clients who are not your ideal clients, they take extra energy because you're not focused on the best services for the best value to that customer. You're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. So either the client is calling you all the time and taking up a lot of time that in your mind may or may not really be necessary or may not be helping you add value for that client, or you're struggling to get information from them, as you were talking about, Anne, right? Like you're struggling to get good content, and they just don't seem to be seeing the value of what you're offering. So I can give an example. I worked with a client that wanted to grow her business, but didn't, how do I put this? She was comfortable doing a certain set of things and she wanted to do more of those things. And I think one of my values to a client is coming in and saying, you're doing these things and let's see if they're working, right? Let's actually measure if they're working. And if they are, great, let's keep doing those. But what else could we be doing that could improve, right? Because there's
Right.
always something more we can do. We can't ever be perfect in business, right? There's always a
Right.
chance to improve something. And we try to pick the things that are going to really have an impact, have a return on your investment. So this client didn't want to try anything new. And so honestly, there wasn't a lot of value I could bring to her. And she felt it and I felt it. So we struggled with it for a while. And that's what I mean. They're taking up a lot of your time. We just struggled with that equation for a while. I was trying to convince her to try something new. She was resisting. She felt like I was pushing her. And I didn't want to be pushing her, but I did want her to be open to that. And in
Right.
the end, we both agreed, this isn't really working. And it was honestly partly my fault because, again, during that marketing sales process, it's important for me to ask questions of the client to make sure they understand what this is going to feel like and make
Right.
sure that they feel comfortable and that this is what they want to take on. There's a lot of business owners who want to make changes, but I guess what I should say is theoretically they want to make changes, but when the actual change, when they're faced with it, it can be really challenging. And so
Yeah.
how do you tell that during that sales process? Because it's not beneficial for either of you, and it just takes so much of your time to try to figure out a way to make it work. And then in the end, if it doesn't work, which is
Right.
very different. I had someone recently say to me, well, you wouldn't want this type of client, like a client for me, a client that they don't have great cash flow, they're struggling, their business is growing, but they're really struggling to make it work. I said, actually, that's an ideal client for me because as long as they're ready to make change, we have so much to work with. We can take them from where
Yeah.
they are to really increasing their cash flow, increasing their net profit. There's so much we can do, but they have to be ready for change. And
Yeah.
so, I think knowing what makes that good client or not and being able to avoid those worst clients is really, really important.
Yeah, I think it is. It's really, if you start, one of the things we do, and this is a great way to do it. I don't even remember who gave me this tip, but we start a timer every time we're working on a client, right?
That's
Start a
impressive.
timer. We know how much time we've spent, so that if we're spending, hours and hours, we can literally just divide it and say, how much did we actually make on that client? So,
Yep.
and this came in handy recently. I was telling you about it before the show, but we had a client who had brought us a bunch of clients, and we knew if we let this client go, we were going to lose the clients that they brought with them. We knew that was the case, and because it just the way the situation worked, and so it was very, very hard to let them go, and especially because, quite honestly, it wasn't that we didn't like this person. We loved the person. It was a very good person, but what they needed and how they wanted to work was so far outside of our processes. They didn't want to use our processes at all, and so we were completely redoing everything just to satisfy all of these clients, and we let them go. And during the middle of COVID, this was like very, very scary for me, because we'd also made a hire during COVID. So, what am I going to do here? And it was a decision. It was immediate. Everybody in the company was a little terrified. Okay, well, what is it?
Sure.
And then immediately it was like you could hear the sigh of relief from everybody. So it makes a huge difference. I want to go back to what we talked about. We said analyzing current and past clients. I want to talk about, when you say that, one of the things that I did, and I don't even remember what possessed me, I created a spreadsheet of what my clients had in common.
That is a great idea.
That's what I was going to ask you. So is that one way, or are there other ways that you would do this?
Yeah, there are plenty of ways, but I love that because, especially if you look at, you got to be honest with yourself. You don't have to show this to anyone else, but make 2 columns and make the clients that are the ones that you'd love to have more of, and the clients that do kind of drag you down and you're like, I don't really want those. And then look at the common characteristics of each. So look at the good and the bad, and think about, how do you market to those common characteristics? So if the common characteristics, people automatically think about industry, about size of company, but I think about attitude. So like I said, I need someone who wants to change, has no idea how to make the changes to grow, they know they're stuck. They have no idea how to get past that stuck part. That's fine. That's my job. It doesn't have to be them. But they're ready for that change. They're ready to invest, to make those changes, because they really want to grow. They have a clear vision. So that's what I'm looking for when I talk to a client on the phone, actually, a potential client. I'm asking them questions to get at those characteristics. So identifying those common characteristics is really important. And my point is, look beyond the sort of demographic data of, size of company, gross revenue. Those are important. Industry, location, all that stuff is important, but look beyond that to what makes them good to work with, what will make them successful when they work with you. Because that's really what we're getting at. What will make them successful? And if let's say you're a restaurant, this still applies, right? What will make that customer happy when they walk in the door? If they're a vegetarian, you're a steak restaurant, you certainly should have some vegetarian meals on your menu, but it's not a perfect fit. If they come along with a friend who's a steak lover, you want to make sure they have something to eat, right? But the vegetarian is not a restaurant as their So
you're not going to advertise.
Market to your steak lovers. You're not going to advertise to them, right? You're not going to try to get them in, because it wouldn't be a very comfortable situation when they do come in. They're not going to be very happy. So it doesn't matter what industry you're in. You can do this. I love your common characteristics spreadsheet. Some other things you can do are ask your current clients who are great clients what they see the value of your company as being, right? What do they see as the biggest value? And that's on the good side, right? And then you can buy bad clients or less ideal clients by the ones that don't value that thing that all your really good clients do value about your services. And if somebody doesn't value those things, again, you can market using those things. We provide this value to our clients, and people will self-select out.
Yep, absolutely. Actually, James has a question. James is
Oh, great.
James, thank you, by the way, for tuning in. I really appreciate that you're here. He says, what can we do to combat the catch-22 with people we know who need your services but are too stubborn to make the move to contact you? Is there a secret weapon at our disposal?
So, James, is this aimed at my particular ones, I'm guessing? Are you reading it that way, Anne?
Yes, exactly.
So, again, I have never had luck trying to convince someone to use my services who's not ready. So to me, the exposure to me, like, take a look at podcasts like this, get to understand what I do, talk to me maybe if they're willing, but I'm not going to push that sale. If they're not ready, they're not ready. And they may never be ready. And that's okay. I mean, everyone's got to run their business the way they want. And there's no perfect way to run a business. There's no saying every business has to grow and expand to a certain point. There's no right way to do this. So I really take customers who are ready. And I think that applies to other businesses too. Like James, I happen to know, does photography, does a lot of events like weddings and things like that, as well as other type of videography. And so, for him too, if he's got a client who wants a certain type of video and he doesn't provide that, there's a mismatch. You just can't force people, is what I'm saying. You gotta deal with people where they are, right?
Yes, absolutely. I want to go back and I want to give James a shameless plug here. James is a photographer. But
absolutely.
So James, please put your website in the comments because I want people to go look at his website. If you haven't looked, it is the coolest website. This is actually another shameless plug for Sage Harper. Sage helped him with this. He created interactive videos. So James will talk. You have to watch it. I think it's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. James will talk, and then I'll say, if you want to learn more about this, or this, click here. It's the coolest thing. Cool. It's a really neat way he's really set up. So if you have a chance, go look at that. James, please put your website in there. That's really, really good. All right. So let's talk about, it's sort of like training your husband. How do you train your clients?
So, I was thinking about this yesterday and earlier today, actually, I was talking about this. There's relationships that are business relationships, and you may be friends with your clients, but that's still a business relationship. So it's very similar to, having a client, working with a vendor, working with an employee. You have to let your expectations be very clear. And people say, what, with your clients? I understand with employees, but with your clients? Yeah, absolutely. So sharing with them what your process is, how you work, what they're going to need to do in order for this partnership to be successful, right? So just setting the stage. Even, like I said, even a restaurant, they might be looking at me funny saying, yeah, that doesn't apply to me. Sure it does. You set the stage when they walk in that foyer and they're taking a look at your menu. You have certain visual indications of how this is going to go. Are you going to walk up to the counter and order? Or is it a sit down restaurant, right? I mean, that's very, very simple, but you've got cues to them to let them know. So you've all had the experience of starting to walk into a restaurant, realizing that, oh, this is counter service, not sit down, or, oh, this is white tablecloth and I'm not really dressed right for that, or whatever. And saying, now this isn't for me. So you want to have those expectations clear up front. So for a restaurant, that might be visual when the person walks in. For other businesses like yours or mine, and it's really about setting the expectations. So right in the scope of work, right in the contract, you can say, hey, we're going to want you to talk to us 3 times a week to get us new content, right? And so tell them that up front. If you have turnaround, like I know a graphic designer, he has, he does graphic design, he lays out annual reports, he does logos, whatever. So the client has to review the work and give feedback. He gives them a financial incentive. So if they will turn around stuff within 2 weeks, he'll give them a discount on the bill. If they take longer, if they take the normal amount, the price is what it is. If they take longer, he'll actually charge them more. Or if they want things in a rush, great idea. Right? You can actually make the expectations clear and then incentivize. So disincentivize the bad. He charges a premium for rush jobs because they're such a pain. Like he really needs some time to do his best work. So he'll just charge extra for a rush job and try to disincentivize people from doing that. So again, I think clarifying your expectations up front so that both sides are happy and understand exactly what they're going to get into. Yeah. And then incentivizing that with, like I said, you can change your pricing, you can, throw in some extras, all that kind of stuff.
Well, one of my favorite things, and I again learned the hard way when I was working every weekend, and I was working. When I say every weekend, I wasn't working a little bit every weekend. I was working 7 days a week, full 12-hour days. It was ridiculous. And then I realized part of my problem was that I wasn't sending out emails until either Friday evening or Saturday or Sunday. And what would happen is my clients would go, "Oh, she works those days." I was training my clients to believe I work those days. Yes. So now I have on my G Suite, I have a send later. So if
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to send an email out on Friday evening, instead of sending it Friday evening or Saturday or Sunday, I have it delivered Monday.
Mm-hmm.
That way they are like, oh, Anna's taking the weekend off, right? So
Yep.
it does. It's these small things, but they do matter. They really do. So
Mm-hmm. And that can make the difference. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, it's perfect. You can. It makes a difference.
Yeah,
So
I mean, it can make the difference between a good client and a bad client. You can train the clients who seem to be bad clients into being good clients a lot of the time by clarifying your expectations, by sitting down with them and kind of resetting and saying, we're struggling here. Let's reset. And I've done that with clients and turned it into a really good relationship. So that's worth doing.
absolutely. So I want to ask you, and I didn't ask you ahead of time, but I always ask.
Okay.
Tell me about what is your favorite. Tell us what your favorite book is right now
Ooh.
that you would recommend.
I don't know that I have one favorite. I've been reading, so I know I'm supposed to read business books all the time, but I see reading as sort of an escape. So
Yes.
I read a lot of science fiction. And the reason I
Okay.
do that is it's a really interesting way to look at people's response to different situations. So since you can create whatever the situation is artificially, right? Because there's
Right.
no limitation. And then you can play with how people react to each other and to the situation. I find that fascinating because that's what I look at in business too. How can we help people do their best work? And one of the things I've read recently is called Binti, Binti. It's a trilogy of short novels, and it explores the things we give up when we take risks. So
Okay.
when we step outside of what our community normally does and we do something different, we're taking a risk to gain something that might even be valuable for the community. It might be valuable for us. And so it could be a really admirable goal. It could be a great vision, but you're giving up something. You're giving up potentially acceptance by your community. You're giving up um, your support system potentially. And it's a really interesting exploration of that. Like, when do we step outside of our comfort zone, and the good and bad of that. So
Yeah. Oh, that's great. And I love, I do the same thing actually. I read a lot of fiction.
mhm.
One reason is that yes, I need that time to shut my brain off. And that's when usually ideas will pop into my head. I'm like, I forget what I'm reading now. Because
Mhm.
something will pop into my head because I've let go of all the worry of work. So I think it's
Mhm.
it's really important. It's really important.
Mhm.
All right, let me remind everybody, we do have a show on Wednesday. I am embarrassed to say I'm on vacation, so I honestly do not know who is coming up Wednesday, but I am sure it's a
Surprise
wonderful.
guest. That's great.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe I did that. But do tune in. We will have a great show. As always, I want to also let you know we are completely booked. We have guests all the way through the end of the year, and
Woohoo.
which amazes me. But starting in January, we're going to flip the switch a little bit. We're actually going to change names. We're still working on a name. We're also we'll do the same interview format, but we're going to specifically go in with that one idea. What is that one idea somebody's bringing to the table? So I think it's going to be a whole new, fun, interesting. You're going to walk away going, oh yeah, this is what I've got. This is really good. I want you to be
Cool.
able to do what I did when I was listening to Michael Hyatt and call and say, I call Anastasia every time I listen to Michael Hyatt. And I'm like, hey, Anastasia, we need to put this into the business. That's what I want you to do with this show. So hopefully that's where we're going to go. That's the goal going forward. Andrea, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on. Tell people, I know they can find you at DunathanConsulting.com.
Mhm.
If you're listening to this is DUNATHAN consulting.com. Where else can they find you? You're on LinkedIn.
I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. I am more active on LinkedIn than Facebook. And people should go on the website. I really want to encourage people, if you're thinking about the potential of making changes, there's a free consultation you can schedule right off my website. And you are completely welcome to do that. I'm not a salesy person. I'm going to give you the best advice I can in half an hour. And if that took care of your problem and you go away and do it yourself, fine with me. I have no problem with that. So take advantage of it, right? Why not? Free
Yeah.
half an hour
Well,
consult. Might
and
as
I can
well.
absolutely attest to that. I've known you now for 6 months.
Mhm.
And during this time, you have yet to say to me, hey, do you want to look at this? And I love that because I think that's how I approach life. I feel like when people are ready for me, they'll come to me. And if they don't come to me, then, they're not ready for me. And that's okay. I'm okay with that.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
All right, you stick around. I want to remind people of some things, so give me 1 second. I want to remind you again, my kids think I'm a nerd, so please subscribe. That would really be helpful on YouTube. But also subscribe on wherever you're listening to the podcast, and you can listen to this everywhere. We actually got a call last week, or we got a message last week saying, hey, you're on Amazon Podcasts on Alexa, which was so cool because we didn't know we were on Amazon Music Podcast yet, and we suddenly were. So that's really, really cool. I also want to remind you, if you need help with your marketing, we are a small team, but that means we are hands-on, and we really like to take care of our clients. That's the thing we hear most from our clients is we know we can call you and you're going to give us an answer, and you're going to go. Sometimes we call our clients. So if you need us, we're the only advertiser on this show. So this is my shameless plug for me. Please do give us a call. We'd love to help you out. If you need anything, we are here. I know Andrea's here. Andrea, let me come back to you real quick. Thank you so much for coming on. This was fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate being on here, and it's always fun to talk to you. I learn a lot every time.
Actually, let me ask you one more question, because I know you speak. How can people reach you? Should they go to DunathanConsulting.com to reach you if they want you to speak at one of their events?
Absolutely. My phone number's there. My email is there. And you can even schedule a quick meeting with me or whatever you want to do. There's when you schedule a consultation, you got some different options of how to schedule. So feel free to reach out to me any way you like, LinkedIn or email or call or whatever. And I'd be delighted to speak.
And you're great I want to say this to everybody who's out there, because I know we have a lot of, it's interesting. One of my audience, key people in our audience, we have CEOs of chambers of commerce. Andrew, great guest speaker at one of your lunch and learns for your Chamber of Commerce. So please have her in. She's really, really great. So, reach out to her. All right, everybody, I will see you Wednesday. I'll put something in the show notes about who's coming up Wednesday. Again, I'm embarrassed about that. Can you see the rain out behind me? Can you tell it's raining? It is pouring. It's lovely. So
enjoy the rain.
Yeah, it's wonderful. All right, everybody, have a great day. We will see you soon. Bye-bye.